Chapter 4. They rode towards Quetta through fields of golden haystacks. Jamal had peeled back the tarpaulin and shifted the cabinets. Now Mahtab stood in the sunlight, the cool air on her face, her veil streaming behind her. The wind was cold, but not the icy blasts of the mountains. This cold refreshed, and she felt a rosy glow to her cheeks. 2 weeks of huddling, bent almost double and fearful, fell from her as dead leaves fall in winter. She was tall and strong and ready. Her mother stood with her, smiling, her burqa thrown back to cover only her hair. Her eyes shone, and the chain of gold coins around her neck sparkled in the sun. Seeing it, Mahtab pushed back the sleeve of her tunic and let the sun gleam on her grandmother's bracelet. They drew up, still some distance from the city. There was a farmhouse enclosed by a high wall, and Jamal got out and banged loudly on the heavy wooden door. It opened and a man appeared, and after a brief conversation came to the truck. Mahtab's father climbed onto the back. Jamal and the other man got into the cabin, and the journey to the city started again. "Who is he, Dad?" Farhad tagged at his father's shirt. "A friend. He has arranged a house where we can stay. He has to guide us. Everything is all right." "Will there be a garden and a swing like at home?" "Possibly." "And will there be some boys to play with?" "I don't know." "And something to eat?" "I'm hungry." "Me too," said Zariah. "And me," said Mahtab. She was thinking of a bath, carpets and a bed, a soft clean mattress, no dust, no dirt, no hard wooden planks to lie on, no bumping, grinding, bouncing over rough, half-made roads, just a soft down mattress, and she would lie on it and bury her face in it and sleep forever. They stopped on a narrow street. Again, Jamal beat on a heavy wooden door, and this time he called the family to climb down and to bring all their belongings. They stood there in the dust until the door was opened by a huge, burly man with long hair and a thick beard, who waved them in and then began a lengthy conversation with Mahtab's father. There was no swing, no garden at all. Across the patch of bare dirt were 2 buildings, one a rambling collection of rooms, the other a shed. It was to this second building that the family was led. Inside were 2 rooms. One contained a bed, the other a mattress and 2 cushions, as well as a sink, kerosene stove and small cupboard. A narrow door led to a toilet outside. The floor was packed earth. Jamal and the man they had picked up earlier shook hands with Mahtab's father and wished the family well. The bearded man left too, but he promised to return with food. The door closed. Saraya began to cry. "Stop it," said her father. "We have escaped. We are still alive. It is not like home, but what does a little discomfort matter?" "I'm going to call that man Hairy Man," whispered Farhad. Mahtab's mother filled the sink with water, and they took turns to wash their face and hands. The water, clean before Mahtab plunged her hands into it, turned almost to mud. Time and again, the filthy water was drained away. "I don't recognise you," Dad cuffed Farhad behind the ear. "This is a new face, a clean face. I don't know it at all. And you're a stranger to me." Mum, there's a strange man here. Protect me," Farhad giggled. Hairy Man returned with bread and yogurt and fruit. He ate with them and spoke at length about the forward journey to Malaysia, Indonesia and Australia, and of how in that country they would be free of the dangers they had known before. "It is not a Muslim country," he said, "but there are many like us who have made it their home." "I know," said Mahtab's father. "I have heard and read about it." Mahtab knew he was thinking of the young man he had met so many years ago. That young man had told of the rich farmland he had lived on, fields of wheat, like those they had just travelled through. The city where he had studied was newer than anything Mahtab could imagine, and it was built beside the sea. Where was he now? "But you must go first," the man said to Mahtab's father. "It is better that way." Mahtab trembled. No, they had come so far together because they were together. "We will talk in the morning. My family is exhausted." He poured more tea for them all. "We are very grateful, but now we must pray and we must sleep." Sleep didn't come. Mahtab lay on the mattress and stared at Saraya and Farhad, curled up like puppies on the cushions. He must not leave them. What would happen to him? If they all stayed together, he was safe. She could hear her mother and father talking softly in the next room. If he went now, alone, journeying through some strange countries, anyone might seize him again. The wind rattled the sheet of iron above her head. She heard strange insect sounds. And what would happen to them? How would Mum manage with no man to protect her? This was an unknown city. They had no friends, no family here. Mum had never been alone. Would Hairy Man look after them? Did he have a wife and children? Would he take all their money, their gold jewellery? She ran her fingers over her bracelet, feeling the shallow indentations on the flat surfaces of the coins. Grandma had said the writing on them was in a language from India that she could not read or understand. All she knew was that it had been in the family, passed down for many, many years. What else had she said? So you will always remember. Sleep must have come eventually because she woke to the sound of cups being put out and the smell of tea being poured. They sat on the floor and handed around the bread and talked of their plans. When we get to the place where we're going to live, Dad, said Soraya, can I have a paddling pool like the one at home? You can have everything you want, everything I can get for you. Her father pulled her onto his lap. I'll talk to the men who arranged things this morning and we will set out as soon as we can. In a truck? No, little one. There will be all kinds of other ways to travel. A plane and a boat. I'll find out what we have to do to get away as quickly as possible. This is not a good place to stay, even though it is safe and it's more comfortable than the truck. I want us all to leave together. He kept saying this for 3 days while the owner of the house and the many men who visited said otherwise. Mahtab sat on the mattress inside as they squatted in the yard and went over and over the route to be taken, the money that was needed, the time and the dangers. Finally, her mother urged him to go ahead. Maybe they are right. Maybe it is more expensive than we ever imagined. Go quickly, discover the way, and then, when you are there and able to send more money, we will come too. We are safe here. The man will bring food and I will keep the children here with me. I will not let them go out into the streets or put themselves in harm's way. When you are safely there, you can send us word and tell us what we have to do. He was persuaded. Plans were made. Money changed hands. As the time drew closer, the family grew silent. Mahtab watched her father's every move. Her eyes followed him as he crossed the yard to meet with the strangers who came to instruct him. She noticed the way he tugged at his beard as he tried to make up his mind, the way he sucked his bottom lip in as he concentrated, the way he tossed his head back and laughed, showing the gaps where 3 teeth were gone on the left-hand side. She stared at the curly dark hair on the backs of his fingers as he lifted his tea to drink, and at his back, laced with the purple bulging scars as he stood half-dressed. Farhad and Soraya clung to him. They rode on his back or walked with their arms wound tightly around his waist. When he sat, they lay on the floor, their heads resting on his legs. On the last night, they all spooned meatballs and rich spinach sauce onto the flat rounds of bread. I will not eat this well again until you are with me in Australia. Their father wiped the spilt sauce from his beard and put his arm across his wife's shoulders. It will not be long. Later that night, when Farhad and Soraya slept, he knelt on the floor beside Mahtab's mattress. I pray that we will all be together again soon, but you know that many things can happen and the journey is long. You are the eldest, and you understand that the next few months will be very difficult for your mother. She will need your help. The others are too young to understand when they are in danger. They will get very bored here. There is nowhere to play as there was at home. There are no toys, no books, no friends. It will be up to you to help Mum as much as you can. He put his arms around Mahtab and hugged her tightly. Play games with them. Tell them stories. Talk to them of the things I have told you about Australia. Try to keep them as calm as you can. He stroked her hair and kissed her forehead. We will be together again. We will be free from the fear and all that we have seen and we have suffered. I promise you that. How could she say to him what she was thinking without her watching over him, with him in strange lands, with strange men, so far away? Mahtab pushed these thoughts from her mind, wrapped her arms around him and pressed her face to his chest. In the morning, he was gone. At first, their days remained the same. They got up and washed, and then Mahtab and her mother knelt in the second room to pray. They ate their morning meal and took turns imagining where their father might be and what he might be doing. He is sailing on the sea like Sinbad, said Farhad. He can see lots of fish, and there are giant whales as big as islands. He is in the new country already, said Soraya, and he has got us a house, and there is a special room for each of us and an orange tree like the one we had before, and the paddling pool for me is the biggest one in the whole world, and soon he will tell us to come. Mahtab could tell them some of the things her father had told her that he had learnt from the young man from Australia. Everyone can have a television, and you don't have to hide it away in a cupboard so that no one can find it. And everyone must go to school, even the girls, until they are 15, and you cannot get married until you are 18. And you can travel anywhere in the country, girls too. And there is not war, and you are not scared that someone will take your money or your life. To herself, she said, and I can study at the university like Grandma's sister and be a doctor. Weeks passed. The days grew longer and longer, and they heard nothing of him. Everyone slept later. The hot sun was high above them as they drank the first tea of the morning. Then they pushed the mattress and the cushions back, and that empty space became their world for the day. They talked less of him and more of their life before. They dredged up from their minds the memories of their home and their family, talking of grandma, aunts and uncles and cousins, until the pain of remembering became too great and they begged each other to stop. They cooked, taking time to mix flour and water and occasionally milk to prepare the dough for bread. Sometimes when hairy men delivered their food for the week, there was meat, and then Mum would take her time and mix with it the spices she had carried across the border, firming the mixture into tight balls for cooking with vegetables. Whenever there was spinach sauce, they thought back to that night, the night before their father left, when they had all eaten his favourite meal. Weeks became months. Sometimes when they sat in the doorway with only the sunshine for company, Farhad asked, "Where is our father now? Why haven't we heard?" Mahtab wasn't sure how to answer. She knew that Malaysia and Indonesia were to the east of Pakistan. She knew too that at some stage of the journey there was a sea to be crossed, but she didn't know the order they came in or how long any part of the journey would take. So she always said, "He is still travelling." At times, Farhad stood silently in the doorway, listening to the sounds of boys playing beyond the wall, running feet, a ball kicked and thudding against the bricks, eager cries. "Let me go," he said to his mother one day. "Let me play with them." She said no, and he grew angry and took a stick and gouged deep holes in the ground. He stomped on dried leaves, shattering them into hundreds of tiny pieces, grinding them into the dirt. When his mother called him to stop, he shouted back, "Where is my father? Why did he go? He doesn't want us." He pressed his face against the wall and would not look at anyone. One day, Hairy Man delivered paper and pencils along with the lentils and the green vegetables. "I asked him for these," said Mum said. She took one sheet and drew a large square and then divided it up into many smaller squares. "What is it?" Farhad was impatient. "You'll see." She coloured in every second square along the row. Mahtab knew. "It's a chessboard," she whispered. Her mother nodded. "We'll make the pieces from paper too." They drew each piece of a chess set on the remaining paper and gently tore around the shapes, kings and queens, bishops, knights and rooks, and finally a whole collection of pawns. "But I don't know how to play," said Farhad. "I'll teach you." Mahad remembered the nights at home when she used to sit beside her father and he pointed out to her the folly in a move she was about to make. He instructed her in the need to plan ahead, to think what move her opponent might be going to make and to find ways to escape that move. "It's a game of the mind," he said. "A game of the mind." That set, left behind in Herat, was made of marble. She tried to remember the cool feel of the rounded shapes in her hand, and she wondered if anyone played with them now. Every day after breakfast, they lay on their bellies on the floor, pushing the tiny bits of paper from square to square, claiming their victories as each outmaneuvered the other. It wasn't easy. A cough was enough to blow a piece from its place, but they persisted. Gradually, Farhad's skills increased, and even Soraya spotted moments when danger lurked before him. After an hour or so, he would shrug his shoulders and announce that he had had enough. He stood at the open door and again begged their mother to let him go out, find some other boys to play with. Perhaps there would be a ball to kick around, a kite to fly. She always said no. Then it would be time for a story: Aladdin and his lamp, Ali Baba, the ebony horse, Sinbad the seaman. They knew them all, but they lay together across her bed and listened as the familiar words washed over them and took them out of the tiny room with its dark bare walls and onto exotic lands. One day, Soraya and Farhad begged for a different story. "You tell one," Mum said to Mahab. "I want to lie down." "But I don't know any." "You do?" Soraya climbed onto her sister's lap. "There's nothing to do here." "Come on, Mahtab, you tell us good stories." "All right." Mahtab thought for a moment. "Once upon a time, there was a little girl called Soraya who had a brother called Farhad. They used to live in Herat, but now they are bigger and they live under a different sky in a land called Australia. They have a wonderful house with a big garden with fruit trees that feed them, and they grow oranges so big and juicy that when they suck them, the juice runs all over their chin. And there are delicious almonds and flowers too, bright, gorgeous flowers that delight them. And the sun is always shining, and Farhad has a great big kite and he can fly it with the other children in the street." "What does Soraya have?" the little girl asked, nestling down, her head pressed against Mahtab's ribs so hard that they hurt. She placed her thumb in her mouth and sucked on it the way she had as a baby. Mahtab remembered something her father had shown her in a book about Australia. She is very lucky. For her birthday, her father has been to the market and he doesn't buy her a caged bird as he would in her old land. He buys her a kangaroo. A what? What's that? A kangaroo. It is one of the most amazing of all the creatures on earth. It has a small face and a big body and a strong tail, so it can stand up on its tail and its back feet. And it doesn't walk. It can't walk like a donkey or a camel. Its front paws are too little. It jumps everywhere. That's how it gets around. And the most special thing about it is that it has a pouch here at the front. Mahtab patted her stomach. And in that pouch, it can put its babies and carry them around when it's looking for food. A pocket, Soraya giggled. She picked up her small rag doll and tucked it into the top of her trousers and danced across the floor. I'm a kangaroo, I'm a kangaroo. She was laughing. Farhad too. He picked up a sandal and tucked it into his pants. He jumped from the mattress across to the door and back, and suddenly they were all laughing and rolling on the floor, as if they were happy again in their own house, in their own land. Later, their giggling done, Farhad said, if they have such funny animals there, maybe the people are funny too, and they have 3 legs, or 2 heads, said Soraya, or their eyes are at the back of their head. Their 2 heads. Their giggling started again. Mahtab didn't join them. She knew there would be things that were different. Dad had told her. But what would it really feel like to go to school, to study, to try to find a friend? That night, when the younger children were asleep, Mahtab lay on the bed with her mother. Do you think he is still travelling? I don't know, her mother said. I lie here at night trying to picture where he is, but I know nothing of the world. I have never been anywhere but Herat. I don't know what those places he talked of look like. I don't know how far away they are or how wide the ocean is that he has to cross. He told me much of the way he would go, but I can't remember it all. How long is it since he left? 5 months. He must be there by now. So why doesn't he call us? He said that he'd phone. I don't know. I just don't know. After that, Mahtab didn't ask again. She sat all day on the floor or on the mattress, sometimes occupying her thoughts with memories of the past or imaginings of the future. More often, her mind was blank. When she got up to go into the other room, she moved slowly, her limbs heavy. She saw her mother was the same. They grew pale and quiet. It felt as if only Farhad and Soraya had any life in them. They still giggled as they played the kangaroo game, seeing which one could jump higher and further, which one could stuff the most sandals and shoes into their pouch. Once, when Hairy Man came to deliver their weekly food, they demanded he watch and judge which of them made the better creature. He shook his head and hastened away even more quickly than usual.